Good afternoon. This is Miss Estes, and I am a fifth grade teacher at Bayview Elementary. Today we are going to talk about volume. Our I can statement for today is I can recognize volume as an attribute of solid figures and understand concepts of volume measurement. Area versus volume. In fourth grade, you already learned to find the area of a figure, like a rectangle, by covering it with unit squares. Area is the number of square units needed to cover a plane figure. We have an example right here for us. We have a square, and it would take 4 unit squares to cover the entire square. So that's why our area is 4 square units. Now we are going to learn to find the volume of a solid figure, like a cube, by filling it with unit cubes. Volume is the number of unit cubes needed to fill a solid figure. We have an example of a solid figure in the upper right-hand corner here. It would take 8 unit cubes to totally fill the inside of that cube. So that's how we know the volume is 8 cubic units. So when we talk about plane figures versus solid figures, they have some similarities, but they also have some differences. So the first thing we're going to look at is the number of dimensions. If we're talking about a plane figure, the plane figures only have 2 dimensions, whereas a solid figure is going to have 3 dimensions. Well, what are those dimensions? Well, when we learned about area in fourth grade, we learned that the 2 dimensions of a plane figure are length and width. But in order to find the volume of a solid figure, we need the length, the width, and the height. We take it one step further. So the name for the space inside the figure, so if we're talking about the space that inside of a plane figure, we are talking about its area. With a solid figure, we are trying to find its volume. And area we measure in square units, whereas volume we measure in cubic units. So when we're talking about the volume of rectangular prisms, we have to remember that volume is the amount of space inside a solid figure. How much can that figure hold? And cubic units are used to measure volume. So if we look at some examples here, we see that 1 little cube is equal to 1 cubic unit. So they want us to find the volume of each of the solid figures below. So if we look at this first figure, the first thing I notice is I can see that there are 4 cubes in this top layer. Then I can see that there are 3 layers, 1 layer, 2 layer, and 3 layer. So there's 2 ways I could go about finding the volume. If there are 4 in each layer, I could add the number 4 3 times, 1 for each layer, and 4 plus 4 plus 4 equals 12. I can also use what I know about multiplication and take 4, the number of cubes in 1 layer, multiply it by the number of layers, which is 3, and also I'm going to get 12. So the volume of this solid figure would be 12 cubic units. If I look at the second figure, again, I can look at this top layer and I can see 3 cubes, 6 cubes, 9 total cubes in that first layer. And I can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. So I'm going to multiply 9 times 4. And what is 9 times 4, guys? Correct. That is 36. So the volume of this second solid figure is 36. And then our last one If we look at the top layer, I see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And then it's very easy to see that there are only 2 layers. 12 plus 12 gives us a total of 24 cubic units as our volume. So if we have the entire figure, focus on that top layer, figure out how many cubes are in that top layer, and then you can multiply it by the number of layers to help you find that volume. Here we have some rectangular prisms that we have to find the volume of, but as we see, it's not totally filled in. But we can use this information to figure out the number of cubes in one layer. We can see how many layers there are in this prism, and we can use our multiplication to help us find the volume of the entire rectangular prism. So when we look here, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 4 across. So 8 times 4 would give me a total of 32 cubes in that bottom layer. Then when I look, I see 1, 2, 3 layers. So we can multiply 32 times 3 to give us a total volume of 96 cubic units. The second prism here, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 times 5 equals 30. So there are 30 in the bottom layer. And how many layers do we see? There's 1 layer, there's 2 layers. So we have 30 for each of the layers that we see. And 30 plus 30 equals 60. So this one has a volume of 60 cubic units. Then our last rectangular prism, we can see that there is 2, and then we have 2 rows of 4, so that gives us a total of 8 in the bottom layer. And we can count that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. And 8 times 4 equals 32. Good job today, guys. So all we have to remember is really focus on the amount of cubes in one layer, find the number of layers. We can multiply as we did here, 8 times the 4 layers, or we could take that number of cubes and add it that many times for the number of layers. Good job today, guys. Thank you.